Hello friends and greetings for the day. Welcome back to another tutorial on ISTQB Advanced Level Test Management Certification. We are in Chapter 2 talking about managing the product. And so far we have already covered all the tutorials related to this chapter, and time for us to have some quick look on some of the sample questions from here to understand what can be expected from this particular chapter. Well, to get started, of course, we'll be looking at some of the questions which are tricky, simple, intermediate as well. So we'll be having a blend of all. So let's not waste our time and quickly get started with that. The number one, of course, a scenario-based question here. You are the test manager of a software project that uses a document-centric sequential development model. Please mind the thing that sometimes you will have information which are right there in the passage and you will have to start highlighting it out. As usual, I always suggest all my learners that have a rough sheet next to you, and as you read the passage, start picking out the important keywords from the passage so that you don't have to reread the content again and again. All you have to do is read the key points again and you will still get the same context. All right, so the very first thing we got here is you are a test manager for sure, and then you are working on a document driven sequential development model, which involves developing a desktop application for a banking system. Okay, so we got some more keywords here. That is desktop application, banking system. But always be careful that what is that you have not covered, and this syllabus has nothing to do with that. For example, we have not discussed on web-based application, desktop, cloud, etc. So this is not a key factor for us to drive. But of course, we have covered about the development model, and we have covered about the type of process like documents, etc. So only write the keywords which you have covered in the syllabus. And banking system is again not a concern, so we should avoid that. The project has a large and hierarchical team, so good, because you're doing traditional, for sure you'll have a big team which is working with multiple stakeholders. Now here the communication plays important role, and also the collaboration. The project has a low level of uncertainty and complexity, so it's not even complicated due to the stable and well-defined requirement and technology. So we have a good requirement as well. Oh, okay, see, the project looks perfectly fine so far. The project also has strict quality and security standards to comply with and the legal regulation. Now that's a catch. You must always make a note of such thing because standards do play a vital role, and sometimes we have to do some of the key activities just because we are following compliances and standards, right? Now let's come to the question. What are the most suitable metric that you should use to analyze the test results and create test report that empower stakeholder to make decisions? Now, I have two answers for you here, or two suggestions for you. Number one, the moment we started looking at the question part, we understood they're asking about matrices. Now, matrices do remain same irrespective of project, SDLC, and many other things, because reporting does not have any boundaries. And on top of it, the second important thing we have is sometimes the passage has nothing to do with your right answer. Okay, so matrices, we have never told you that when it comes to matrices that it depends on banking, it depends on standards, it depends on which SDLC model. So it has nothing to do. So all you have to remember is what kind of categories of matrices you have covered in the syllabus, and you will just have to pick the answers according to that. The second important thing is I don't want you to rely only on this suggestion. That means just for that, it does not mean that you should not read the passage. You should always read the passage and then conclude it. My suggestion should not be taken for granted. Only after reading this entire passage, you can make a conclusion that does this really need to be reread again, right? So you just have to conclude, oh, matrices. This is what the question is. They're asking you what kind of matrices to be used. So we don't have anything to do with the passage. All we have to remind ourselves is what are the primary dimensions of matrices. So we have test, coverage, risk, defect, and of course, the cost of quality and other things, right? So all we have to do is go back to the options and pick up the one which has all this information. And I'll add one more tip at the end. That is, option A says matrices related to risk, defect, progress, coverage, cost, and test effort. That's what we had the primary dimensions as. B says related to defects, progress, coverage, and code coverage. Code coverage is not a primary dimension. Indeed, that's not something what we look forward to measure. Of course, we do measure, but it's not a primary dimension for the overall project, right? So it's just something which is for our internal references, moving from unit testing to integration testing or system testing, right? So code coverage is not a primary dimension. Metric related to product risk, defect, test progress coverage, and environment and configuration coverage. Again, environment and configuration coverage is not a primary dimension. And D, related to defects, progress, coverage, and residual cost for untested components. Residual cost and untested component are two different things. Okay, residual cost means the remaining cost from the budget, which is hypothetical. None of the project would have a remaining cost from the project after doing testing, because we always, have limited budget, and sometimes we try to do more than the budget. And untested component is not yet tested. So how can we determine that? So whatever it is, anyways, that's not something what is called as a primary dimension. So even if you just look at this, we understand that, okay, there's an option which is covering all the primary dimensions, right? So that's where I can easily say that the right answer is A, matrix related to product risk, defect, progress, coverage, cost, and test effort, right? Which concludes to be the most primary dimension. And the second tip what I had for you, I said I'll tell you at the end, we said that we are having a long hierarchical committee or set of people. It's a very mature organization, a bigger set of stakeholders. So when we have a bigger set of stakeholders, we wanted to say that we want all the primary dimensions. So there was a hint for you to understand that why the passage is important for you to be read. Okay, so when we have a bigger organization with large scale people, then certainly the report become very crucial from all the angles. The risk, the defect, the coverage, the cost, the effort. So it's not that we just only concentrate on some of them. And that's where the passage was relevant to picking up the right answer. Okay, let's move on to the next one. The question number 2 is straightforward and very simple as well. Most of you would be able to answer yourself. And you can always follow this habit, team, that whenever I present the question, you can pause, try answering yourself first, and then you can listen to the conversation. Okay, so the question says the diagram shows an incomplete defect workflow where two states, that is X and Y, have yet to be named appropriately. Which of the following would correctly complete the workflow? So if you look at the workflow, there's a state X, which is coming from open and can go back to open as well. And then state X is also going to the close. But of course, close being the terminal state, it does not have any kind of return path. So X is a status where someone can move it from open to X, and from X to open can also be gone. And then on the right hand side, we have another status Y, where we can go one way from open to Y, but from Y we cannot come back to open. But from Y we can go to in progress, and from in progress it can come back to Y. So now all you have to do, the most easiest way to tackle this particular type of question is pick each and every option and place it in the position of X and Y and make some sense. Okay, and that's what we are going to do. But also to say that you can easily answer it if you know the defect life cycle. Okay, so option A says X is retested and Y is reopened. Of course, remember one thing, retesting happens only after the development team says we have resolved it. So X is not the place where you can put retested, and Y is reopened. And again, reopen is also something which happens when the development team asks that we have resolved, you can go ahead and retest it. And if retesting fails, then we can go to reopen. So there is no such place where we can talk about that these two options would fit into X and Y. But if I go to B, B says rejected for X. Yes, open to rejected can happen. And from rejected, it can come back to open after a few discussions, like providing the necessary information. And once it is rejected, it can even go to the close directly. Whereas Y says clarification. That means if the details have not been provided, it can go to clarification. But once it is clarified, it will go to in progress. And from in progress, again, it can come back to the clarification needed. So yes, that perfectly fits, but let's cross check. X says duplicate. Duplicate can only be done from in progress, but not directly from open, because unless the team reviews multiple defects, they cannot mark one or the other as duplicated. And Y is not terminated for sure, because we can only have, if you remember, we can only have one terminal state, and that should be the last state. So it is not in the last in the sequence. So of course, that's not the terminated state. And X for the option D, X is fixed. Fixed is a synonym of resolved, so that's not true. Because that's not in the position. We already have resolved in this life cycle. And Y is rejected, but that should be used for X, not for Y. So put together, I think that pretty much makes sense and concludes that the right answer to this particular question is B, that is X is rejected and why is clarification. And that's how sometime, given that you have a good knowledge of the entire life cycle, you can make your conclusions very quick and fast. Let's move on to the next one. The next question we have is number 3. Of course, it says you are a tester in an agile team working on a new product. Don't forget, in a particular scenario, we can always be asked to behave like anything because you are a test manager. You should know how exactly to do everything else, right? So don't be under the impression that how a test manager can become a tester. Is it a wrong question? No, it is not. During the third sprint, now that's an information to catch up with, while performing exploratory tests, you experienced a failure in the login feature, which was developed during the first sprint in cooperation with the team responsible for the identity provider, which means IDP. What is one reason why you would choose not to create a defect report in this case? So they're indirectly telling you that there's a situation, there's a team, you're working with a different independent team as well. This is for identity provider, and you have decided not to rise. Now the question is, which of the following is not a reason, why you would not choose to create a defect? Okay, so let's look at the option. Option A says a developer will not have time to work on the fix until the following week. That's not something, because if you don't have time to fix till the next week, then it is very important for us to document that information, because without documentation, you can lose grip on that, lose the information, and you would not remember and you cannot track it. So if you are not fixing it then and there in Agile, remember we discussed that Agile methodology does not prefer to document every single thing because being a lightweight process. So only if you're doing that in the same sprint, you don't do the proper documentation. But if you're pushing it to the next week, then it is supposed to be documented. So that's not a good reason why you would not report it. B says you need to clarify the failure with the developer of your team first. Okay, that makes a little sense, because first I will talk to the team and see that whether it is a valid defect or not, and then we would waste our time writing a defect report. Again, don't get me wrong, wasting time in the terms of like, if it is not a valid, then why would we document and invest our time here, right? So first we would like to talk to developer in Agile development team, that do they understand it? Do they accept it? Do they understand that this is actually a defect, or we are also wrong? Don't forget, human is error prone, not developer. Okay, and human includes testers as well. So that is where it is important that we have to discuss that. And initially, on the very first go, we do not just blindly document everything. So that's a good reason why you would not blindly report the defect. This failure, C says this failure will require cooperation with the IDP team. Of course, if it requires cooperation and you have the option, you would fix it, right? So you will need documentation for that, because IDP team is an independent team, and independent team needs to know all the information. Your developer and IDP developer are two different things. So that's why they're using the keyword. So for this, you would need the documentation. But the question is about why you would not document. D says, according to the product owner, the failure has low severity and should be fixed in the next iteration. Again, you're pushing it to the next iteration, no matter if it is low severity or high severity. If you're pushing it to somewhere else, then make sure you have proper documentation to follow it or track it. So this is again a good reason for something to be documented. But if I come back and conclude that what would be the reason which does not let you create a report, the right answer, B, that is, you need to clarify the failure with the developer of your team first. And to do that, you don't really have to document everything. You can just casually go and talk to them and get a clarity, and then look forward to document if required. Okay, but if it is happening some then and there, then we don't document it. So that's one good reason to answer that. Anyways, let's look quickly at one more question so we can have something more to discuss. And this is an example where we have to pick two right answers. So you are the test manager on a project where system testing is being performed. Mind the word, we are telling you the level here. So it is important. The system testing is being performed on a software provided by a third party. Second point to remember, that you have a third party involved here. Then you have received a complaint from the third party that the completeness of the defect data from your system testing is unacceptable. You would have this situation quite often. The next important thing, which of the following option could have been identified as missing from the defect report sent to the third party? Again, we have to keep it very straightforward that One, you're working with an external organization. Second, they don't find enough information on your defect report. So we'll have to figure out those information which are not yet told to you, and why do you think this is important for you to share it with someone external to your organization. So option A says the project activity. Hold on. Project activity, we just told you that system testing is happening. So we know that. So that's not something which is missing. B, steps to reproduce the failure along with the actual and expected result. That's the critical information for anyone to reproduce a defect. So be it third party or internal, I need to supply that information. So that's crucial. C, priority to fix the problem. Now, some of the organization may agree and disagree as well. When you're working internally, the priority is defined by a triage committee as per the discussion, or internally by the developer, right? But when you're working with an external organization, we define the priority for them, or they, being the development organization, they define the priority. We define the priority for them. Either case, okay. That is means the testing team will tell them that what they want first. So they then, being a developer that side as a third party, they will not have any freedom to decide which they will fix first. We will let them know what we want first, and then the development team, which is outside your organization, will follow your priority sequences. So priority is equally important to be included when it works with third party. And D, the technical type of defect, that's not important. That could only be used for cluster measures or improvement actions. So that's not something which will help them to resolve the issue. That's only for categorization. And E, the software lifecycle phase in which the defect was observed, we know testing was happening. Okay, by saying system testing, we know testing was taking place. So I think with that, we can easily conclude that our right answers are B, that is steps to reproduce the failure along with the actual and expected results, and C, the priority to fix the problem, which is important, or which are important for us to be including in the report of defect to help other people understand. So put together, these are the type of questions which you can expect, and these are the ways by which you can handle and conclude them very easily. So that's all from this particular tutorial, team. We'll be getting started with chapter 3. Should you have in the next tutorial, so should you have anything else, feel free to comment below. I'm always there to address your queries and answer them well. Till then, keep learning, keep exploring, keep understanding the context. Thanks for watching the video, team, and happy learning.